This is
ManVsMood.
Episode 10. I am your host, Will, joined as always. From my left, we have...
Jen, I'm on the left today.
She is on my left. In the middle.
Happy Hanukkah. This is Mike.
And to my right...
This is Gary. Hello, hello.
Gary in the house. How are we doing, everyone?
Fantastic.
Good. Yeah. Happy to be here.
Yeah. It's nice to be in Jen's...
Yes,
Jen.
I know, new location.
Yes.
A little more enthusiasm.
A little more enthusiasm. But we do need to talk about the Winter Wonderland, the Christmas Wonderland. The Who's don't even know who put this kind of...
You said Cindy Lou Who, and that's why I went, well, yeah. Now you guys see what I mean.
Pretty apropos.
So much lighted garland. I don't think I've ever seen a place that has so much
If
lighted
it's
garland.
not Hallmark, it's not worth it.
Hallmark, like the Hallmark movies. Do you play? Does the
yes.
TV stay on the Hallmark channel 24 hours a day?
No. But I do regularly watch Hallmark movies with my mom all the way through the Christmas season.
Real quick, what is our favorite Christmas movie? Starting with you, Jen.
Ooh, I have to pick one.
Yeah, you do. Gun to your head.
White
now.
Christmas.
White Christmas, really?
I love White Christmas. I love old movies, so it's a tradition. Well, we know what his is.
Yeah, I'm wearing an elf shirt. It says, "Oh my God, Santa." So
Mike is so hot.
Man, I was sad when Will Ferrell said he was not going to do Elf 2.
That is kind of sad.
I think he said a long time ago that he didn't want to remake the movie because it was basically perfect as it was, and I agree. But
have a sequel though. Come on.
Sequels though, but look at what happened to Anchorman. Anchorman was arguably top 5 movie of all time.
Leg. What does it feel like?
There's just a lot going on when you say that sitting in that position, Mike. We'll put a picture of, believe in the magic Mike.
Just
Mike,
so you guys know, he's sitting in a banana chair on the ground.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it.
Gamer chair.
And your pillows match my shirt, so.
Facing Will.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mike going on here. Gary, what about you? What's your favorite Christmas movie?
I mean, it depends. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
That is a question.
It is 100% a Christmas movie.
I mean, it doesn't have the Christmas spirit in it, but it's got Christmas.
It's a Christmas party. Yeah, that's the whole reason for the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
This is true.
Surprised yours, Jen, isn't Bad Mom's Christmas.
Okay, so I watched that.
I've never seen it.
Garbage movie. It was terrible. We watched it this weekend, and I was like, "This is obnoxiously bad."
I don't know if I could pick between White Christmas and Holiday. I love both of those movies.
Holiday is a movie?
Yeah, Jude Law, Cameron Diaz, Jack Black.
No idea.
Oh, it's
never
so
seen
good.
it.
You can't take him serious. Jack Black in a non-comedy.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of why I like it. It's like the first time you see Jack Black his character is actually kind of funny through it, but he's not the traditional what you'd expect from Jack Black. You could tell he was pivoting his career.
He's not the Jumanji Jack Black.
No.
That
was epic. I love that movie.
Yeah, I just saw that earlier this year for the first time. That was a pretty good movie. But for me, I've got to say Christmas Vacation. I know it's cliche, but I've been watching that movie at least twice a year for as long as it's... Now, since probably 1997-ish, 98.
That's the year I graduated high school.
Mm-hmm. But no, I
That's
could...
the year Gary was born.
I was like...
Exactly.
No, I don't
Gary
think
and I are both
that.
like...
Hey, I'm 96, so I don't want to hear about it. And I was supposed to be 95, but I was one of those talented kids that got to repeat kindergarten.
Well, I got to repeat 4th grade when I moved from Oregon to Washington.
Really?
I was supposed to be 96.
Really?
Well, look at you.
What?
That explains a lot.
You and I were in 6th grade, 7th grade?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, 6th grade, 7th grade.
Long time ago. But no, Christmas Vacation, just for the comedic value. If we had to do a drama for Christmas, I don't like old movies, like, at all.
That's too bad.
White Christmas is really good.
No, it's not.
Yes.
It's hard to watch.
It is.
No, I mean, that's fantastic that you guys enjoy it, but I think it's a terrible movie.
I was indoctrinated at a young age with old movies, so my mom and I would sit around and watch old movies. So it's kind of a comparison in two older movies to each other. Like White Christmas is fantastic, but I get it.
What's the what
What's
movie
the premise?
Is it where the kid licks the pole? Is that
A
what?
Christmas Story.
Christmas
Now
Story.
see, that's number 2. That is what I actually grew up on. I can remember being at my grandparents' house watching that, and since I lived in Alaska, I've done that numerous times.
Ooh.
Now,
Is that what happened to your hand?
No, my hand, I did not stick it to a light pole and my fingers fell off. I'd be a leper, I think, if that happened. His fingers are falling off.
It's so dang cold in Alaska.
Yeah, but the tongue thing is legit, and it will hurt because it will pull the taste buds and skin right off your.
How do you get your tongue off the pole though? Like
hot
water.
Oh.
Or you just pull it off like I did. But see, it's not like here where it's like 25 or 30 degrees.
Yeah.
In Anchorage, it was 5
minus 20.
Well, we couldn't come inside, or we had to come inside if the wind chill got below, I think it was below 0 or below -10.
That kind of makes sense.
But otherwise, I mean, we had a sledding hill and an ice skating rink at every school. So we would go out there and sled and skate and all that kind of stuff. But
so were you like sledding and you fell off the sled and your tongue hit the pole? Or
no, it was a challenge. No, we just did it. We were smart kids. Okay.
The visual
Gary, if you want to
really
try
funny.
it out, take an ice cube fresh out of the freezer and stick it to your tongue.
Yeah,
it'll work.
Metal is far better.
Well, the metal doesn't melt. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But the ice cube melts. So
I just said try it. I didn't say get stuck to it.
Get injured. Yeah.
I think Mike wants to see you pull your tongue off, and then your podcasting career would probably be over.
Video.
You talking like this sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that how Mike Tyson did it?
Maybe, I guess.
Somebody bit his tongue off, so he had to bite somebody's ear off.
Right. Oh man.
Well, today we want to piggyback off the episode we did a couple weeks ago about challenges with weight, and in this episode we want to talk about the importance of physical health and how our physical health can affect our mental health in the way we deal with that. I know for me, about 2013, I decided I wasn't going to do the yo-yo weight thing any longer. I had to take stock because I knew that carrying around that much weight was going to be, it was already difficult enough in my life, but you can't carry around an extra 225 pounds and expect to be a healthy human. I knew that I wanted to see my grandkids and some, stuff like that down the road. So it still had a tremendous impact on me though, because I thought about it a lot and I needed to take that first step literally to begin the path of not yo-yoing, not being a slave to diet culture like we talked about in the previous episode. But this is, there's a lot that goes into it. Everything from, one of the notes that I put down was getting your first letter from ARP when you turn 40. That is like, and you two will experience
we'll
this.
Get there.
That sucks.
But it does. It's that slap in the face that, oh shit, I'm not going to live forever, and I really need to try to find a way to make sure that I take advantage of the longevity in my life that I have the opportunity to fulfill. Whereas piling down double cheeseburgers all day is a way to shorten that. So there's a lot of different aspects of the physical, mental health, I don't want to say divide, but how they come together to make you happier all together. We talked about in great depth on the weight challenges episode of each of us have struggled with our weight in some fashion or form throughout our life. Gary, you talked about you may only want to lose 20 or 25 pounds, but it's something that has bothered you, and you have decided you're going to wear 7 or 8 coats to hide the extra weight at most times.
Got on today. It looks like 2.
So I got 7 coats on. So.
We call them 7 coat, Gary. I got 7 fingers. You got 7 coats. It's all good.
But for me, like I said before, weight was like easy for me to keep off when I was a child. But then, once I got done with college basketball and stuff like that, I was still trying to eat the same, and I was still trying to do the same things. And some days are easier than others. And, when I'm sitting here looking at candy canes and all types of candy and stuff like that, I'm like,
it's all over my house.
I'm like,
no, but
I know where I'm going after the show. That's what I'm saying.
But that's a good thing to say and a good point to bring up is that we're constantly surrounded by temptation in our life. It's we negotiate with ourselves every moment of the day, whether we're going to do something, we're going to eat something, how we're going to react. So it's a negotiation with ourselves, and we have to get to a point where we're comfortable having those things around. I'm gluten-free because I am deathly allergic to wheat. people ask me, I can't bring donuts around. I'm like, shit, no, get that stuff in here. I couldn't care less because
I'm not going to touch it.
and I don't want to, but it took a lot of work on my part to make sure that I wasn't tempted by that. Temptation is something with food that is probably the fastest thing to sabotage us, in my opinion. Mike, I know that you have talked about that. We talked offline for, like I said before we started, for years. How does temptation impact you even today as we begin a weight challenge with all of us that we'll be talking about in future episodes to get our listeners involved?
I don't know. I almost think like the universe is against me, because I'll just walk into a place and be like, I have my goal of wanting to drop pounds or whatever, and like, oh shit, there's a plate of donuts calling my name, or hey, we're gonna go out to dinner, but we're going to Applebee's and what?
The Bloomin' Onion. No,
yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. But those are some of the things that, for me, a lot of it is my mental state, where I'm at. If I'm stressed, or if I already know what my go-tos are, which is junk food. So if I'm not in a good space mentally, then I'm gonna go towards that. So if it's already in front of me, man, it's such a hard temptation to resist. That's really just really, really tough.
Is it something that you have focused on finding a way, like almost a game plan, so that it doesn't tempt you? And I'm not saying just avoid it, because you can't. Otherwise, you have to live in a bubble and in the woods to make sure that you don't encounter any of those
This time
things.
of year is probably the hardest.
Absolutely.
Everybody's making cookies or baked goods.
Well, they want to give it to you, and you're like, I don't want to refuse a gift. Thanks. Yeah.
Here you go, Will.
Yeah. And I just throw it out because it's full of wheat. Yeah. Jen, what about you? Is temptation, or what is something that is something that you struggle with in this type of space?
Well, it's kind of interesting that we're talking about it in this frame of mind of like temptation. And it's been interesting listening to you guys talk about your journey, because it's been a while since I have been in a place where I have felt tempted to, or that I couldn't control what I was eating, or that like cravings were too intense. But it has been a long journey. It has been a long journey. And it was like, I don't know. There was something about when you're saying facing your mortality and things like that. I don't think I've ever really told you guys this, but I have this thing called Meniere's disease. Have I told you this?
No.
I don't think I've told you guys this. Okay, but I think I told you guys about how I'm losing my hearing in my left ear.
Yes.
Did we talk about that? Okay, so I'm almost deaf in my left ear, and I was diagnosed with this when I was 20, but I had symptoms from my senior year on. And I remember exactly when it happened, because it's like you get ringing in the ear, you get vertigo, loss of hearing. That's what I'm dealing with. And that came up when I was after a basketball game. I was a cheerleader, and after a basketball game, I was at my boyfriend's house. We were watching a movie, and my ear was like, ding. Yeah. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, where's that coming from? I was like, do you hear that? And he's like, hear what? And I'm like, what? You don't hear that? I mean, it was so loud. It was like a pitchfork next to my ear.
And in your left ear.
Just in my left ear, but I couldn't differentiate what ear. It was just loud. It was just loud. And it would do that and then kind of go away over a week. And then that went on for like 2 years. I moved to Utah. The higher elevation and the stress of moving away from home for the first time, it kind of went quackers. Like, I mean, it felt like somebody... Have you guys ever tried to eat while you're plugged one ear?
Yeah.
Unplugged your ears? You know how that sounds? That's what it sounded like.
No, like with water. For me, it's when I've had water in there.
It started to feel full, and it was like... It felt plugged, and every time I ate, I felt like I was losing my mind because it was just loud. And I wasn't sleeping. I was choosing not to eat because it just bothered me so much. And it got to this point where my mom was like, oh, that's it. When you're coming home for Christmas break, we're going to go get this figured out. And it took like a week, and I had like CAT scans and MRIs and like all these things. But I was misdiagnosed for 2 years. It was like, oh, you're listening to your music too loud. Oh, your sinuses are inflamed. Oh, all this stuff. And
they're just throwing shit against the wall, hoping
just like
something
throwing
will
stuff
stick.
at me. And the symptoms would kind of go away, but then they'd come right back. And anyway, so my ear's like ringing all the time. But it like, that's just this, it's amazing what you get used to, or you can get used to. And it doesn't bother me as much anymore. There are certain circumstances where I'm like, notice it, but,
So does diet affect that?
massively. Caffeine and salt are a big part of the symptoms that I get around that. And the ringing is actually, you know, your cochlea, the round thing that looks like a shell, and the hair is inside there. Every time my hair falls out, that's the ping. And we all have it our whole lives. That's why as we get older, our hearing gets a little diminished. Mine just happens at a more exponential rate. And it's an old person disease. I was the youngest person that my ENT, who was like a very well decorated ENT, he actually retired right after he diagnosed me, and he went into research. Like, he was a super smart dude. And he'd been around a long time, and he's like, you are the youngest person I've ever diagnosed with Meniere's disease. I was like, cool, awesome. And it continued to affect me pretty heavily through my early 20s, because like stress, caffeine, salt really affect the symptoms I was having. I hadn't had vertigo yet. I didn't get vertigo until I was like 22, 23. And let me tell you, that is a weird experience. Like I would have different types of it. I remember I was coaching cheerleading, and I'm very grateful that it was a carpeted springboard floor, but I was coaching the girls, and it literally felt like somebody had like shoved me to the floor. Like I couldn't, it was so weird. And I literally just fell down, and everybody was like, oh, like watching me. And I'm like, it's cool. I'm fine. It's good.
Just took a couple shots before we got in here.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you'd think that somebody would have shoved me. That's what the owner was telling me. She's like, you kind of looked like somebody just pushed you. Like, she's like, I thought one of the girls pushed you.
Wow.
Really?
Anyway, and so it happened to me once at work, and they called 911. And even though I told them, I'm like, these things can happen to me. I'm fine. It just happens sometimes. That hasn't happened in a really long time because I've been supporting my body through different things. But my point is that when we are forced to face things like you were with your weight, and I was with Meniere's disease, there's not a whole lot of pretending that's not there. You know, you can be in denial all you want, but like there are moments in your life where you're like, oh shit, I have to do something about this. And I just, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, was forced to look at it at a pretty young age, and I just didn't know what to do with it. Like, they wanted me to use fake salt, and I'm like, what? Have you guys ever tasted fake salt?
No.
I like Himalayan.
No, that is not fake.
No,
that is the realest salt you could possibly get.
I call it Himalayan monkey salt.
I just licked the pink lamp, the rock.
Yeah, we have one.
That one in the corner?
Yeah, that's how I get my salt intake.
I have one of those as well.
Prove it.
Oh, don't do that. Okay.
No.
But anyway, my journey was that I was kind of forced to reckon with this at a much younger age because I hadn't had kids yet. I was young. I'm like, why? Like, it was debilitating though. Like,
and it's
there was
not
times
hereditary?
where I couldn't drive. No, it's actually most likely come from exposure to a virus. And so that's why I like the time that we're in. Like, I've been living in virus world for 15, 16 years. Well, actually almost 20 if you count when I started getting symptoms. Anyway, and so it's just one of those, you kind of have to learn how to cope, how to deal. You have to learn. And I was kind of forced into it. And then, you know, of course I started having babies, and like my oldest has an autoimmune condition. And it was like, you know how you feel like the world is against you, what you'd said. That's how it felt for me for up until very recently. 'Cause it was just one thing after another. My diagnosis, then my son's diagnosis. He had surgery at 3 months. Then my daughter is like going through her own health journey right now. And it's like, I'm grateful that not everybody has to go through this, you know, where you're forced to look at your physical health. And it's like, you know, we talked about Haslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, that was like a real thing for me. Like, physical health had to come first. And it's like,
well, and it's the basis for everything else in your life, because that is the one thing that if that changes, it can drastically impact your entire life. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of just getting a physical every year so that you can see what the baseline is for your body, so that you know if things are off, because you have to listen to your body. No one else will know. And please do not believe that doctors know what the hell they're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
They're very smart and they work very hard. But it's called a practice for a reason. They're not perfect. And they're going off deduction. You present a symptom and they deduce using usually the simplest answer, like you experienced, which was you were listening to your music too loud. Guys, is there anything that you've ever had in your life that whether it's Jen dealing with Meniere's disease, me with my hand, where we didn't have a choice, where it just kind of up and slapped you in the face, like, you have to deal with this shit, and you don't get to hide from it or do anything like that.
Yeah. So for me, like, one time, like, I went to Las Vegas with some friends. And
it didn't stay there, did it?
Exactly.
This one time at band camp?
This one time at band camp in Vegas, like, but no. So I went to Vegas with some friends, and I came back, and I was supposed to go to work the next day. And like, I went to get out of bed, and I literally, like, I couldn't even move my body. I couldn't move my joints. My knees were swollen. My, like, elbows were swollen. My ankles and everything.
Hooked up with a binner.
I know, right? My friends were like, we were wondering what you did when you snuck off like that. And yeah, it was just really weird. Like, I couldn't do anything, and I was almost in tears. Like, it was so much pain. And then, like, I was able to, like, I called out of work, and then I had a friend come and get me, and then I went to the hospital, and the doctor said that I had arthralgia, and basically it's like, it's supposed to be like a younger, like, variation or something like that of, like, arthritis, but it's just like
not rheumatoid or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just like,
it is?
No.
Okay.
It's just like a temporary thing, and it happened, and I was like, my joints and everything was swollen for probably like 3 or 4 days or something like that. But man, it was so painful. Like, once I got to the hospital, I, like, couldn't even get out of the car, and
no kidding.
It was just so brutal. Like, it hurt so bad to walk or move or do anything. But
dang Vegas.
I'm never going to Vegas again.
Oh, I bet you're
I'm just
lying.
kidding. I'm lying for sure.
But was it a reaction to an environmental factor or alcohol or?
So at that time, like, I didn't even drink. Like, I didn't start drinking till I was like 28 or 29.
Until you were married?
Basically, yeah. Dang, about that. But yeah, like, I was always so against, like, any type of, like, marijuana, and I was always against, like, drinking, because for me, like, growing up, like, anybody I ever hated in my life, like, drank and smoked and did all these things. So for me, that was like a thing to, like, kind of not do that. My mom did that, and my uncles and stuff like that. So I just didn't do it until I, like, really understood that, like, if you obviously pace yourself.
It's control, moderation. Those things are very important.
Yeah.
And, we talked about the weight challenges. Mike, what about you? Anything that a medical situation that you have been put in, not, by your own decision? Your body made a decision for you.
The only thing I can think of is growing up when I was younger, I sprouted pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And so, the space between your knee and your lower leg, that tendon stretches. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I had these huge bumps on my knees. So anything, if I got hit there.
So you had Osgood-Schlatter's disease.
Yeah, Osgood-Schlatter's. Yeah. Yep. And that was super
hurts
painful.
Like a motherfucker.
Yeah. So playing sports, running,
Osgood-Schlatter's.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's a calcium buildup on your. You can feel it on my left knee.
It's so painful, but that's about the only thing. I grew out of it once it caught up to the rest of me. So, but other than that, no, I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah. Knock on that wood. Well, what I said about the physicals, as we start to hit that big 40, which 40 is the new 30 and 50 is the new 40. It seems like, because we're all, for the most part, if you decide to take a proactive stance in your journey of health, physical health, I know for me, and this is just an example, but when I was 15, 16 years old and I saw somebody that was 45, they looked like they were 80. They looked like they were plaid everywhere. Shout out Mike for wearing plaid today. But
Buffalo plaid.
Yes. But now that I look at that and I see somebody that's 65, look at Pete Carroll. He's a good example of...
That dude's in his 70s.
He's 71 years old, and he doesn't look a day over 50.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because of TV, but 4K usually doesn't do a lot of...
There's no lying in 4K.
You just run up and down the sidelines.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like
chewing his gum.
Oh, yeah. And his gums or his jaws are in shape.
Oh, yeah. That
he
dude
abuses that gum.
He's got a pack
Pete
of...
Carroll, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the show.
But we've got to be proactive with these different tests and things. Like me, I have colon cancer runs in my family. My grandfather passed away of it. So next year, more than likely, I'm going to get to have the fun experience of having a colonoscopy. But we've also got, whether it's your physical or your, just your normal yearly physical. Do we all do our physical? Hands up if we do a physical.
Definitely.
I have one tomorrow.
Shout out. Yeah. Mike is the only one.
I hate going to the doctor.
I know. We all hate it. And that is something
I need to, though.
Yes.
Because my uncle is dying of cancer. It started with prostate cancer. My dad had his prostate removed because of prostate cancer. And I think that's the most common cancer for men is prostate cancers. And so because I have it in the family, I should probably go get checked early instead of waiting till I'm 50.
So can we be the arbiters of like, hey,
you guys are not going to be in that room when I'm getting my prostate checked.
No.
I'm
that's
just gonna,
not where Jen was going with that.
Did you schedule?
No, I have not scheduled one.
Well, that was my friend did for me. That's the only reason why I have an appointment tomorrow, because it's been 8 years for me.
Really?
Yeah. There's nothing like having babies to be like, I am never coming to a gynecologist ever again. Thank you. So like, I don't know. Like there was just a certain point where I was just taking my kids to appointments, and of course I think about myself last. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and in between my husband and one of my best friends, they were just like, we're just going to keep checking in with you until you schedule it. And I finally was like, all right.
I'm going to finally do it.
This is going to happen. So it's funny we're talking about this today because
it's kind of ironic, but Mike hit the nail on the head for all of this, for males and females, because I know a lot of them, but they seem to be a little bit more in tune with it. Yeah. But I hate the doctor. This mentality that we've built into our minds, because the doctor usually is associated with bad news. And whether it's your family members, something that you had when you were a kid, or you were paralyzed, the interactions that we have with these people are not built on something positive, because we're not doing it on a regular basis to go in there and say, hey, go ahead.
I was just laughing because I think my traumatic experience from the doctor's office was when I was 5.
Really?
And my mom took me in to get my inoculations for kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And I sat down in the chair. I looked right at the nurse and I asked her, is this going to hurt? And she goes, well, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to feel good. So I'm like, nope. I got up and I took off. I ran. I was running through the entire, I don't know if it was a clinic or hospital.
One of those kids, huh?
But they finally cornered me. And
they tased you?
It took 2 doctors, my mom, and 2 nurses to hold me down so they could give me inoculations. So that's probably where my traumatic experience started.
There's no probably.
No, I would deck that doctor if they did that to my kid. I'd be like, drop kick, get out. No.
This was the 80s, though. Things are a lot different.
We didn't have woke people yet.
Yeah, right.
This isn't even woke. This is just...
Don't put your hands on my kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the only way they could hold me down to get my shot. And my mom's like, yeah, hold him down.
And I totally get that. But this mentality that we have as, we look at a lot of different things with our mental health. We push it down. We push it back. We find other things to focus on. Your kids, other mental health issues,
your job,
your family, job. Yeah. There's a litany of reasons that we surpass the doctor's office and go right to having another cheeseburger or something like that. Is that something that has ever crossed your mind, though, the importance of that, and you felt guilty for not engaging it? Is that something that you have ever... Because I know for me, I've only had a couple of times where I had kidney stones once, and please, if you ever... Just don't drink soda. Don't get super fat. Don't do that, because I've had 3 fingers cut off, and I would put the surgery I had for my kidney stones, like 5% less than an amputation. Wow. And I remember amputation like it was yesterday, because I actually hallucinated after the surgery. But I couldn't walk. I couldn't go to the bathroom. All of those things, and it was one of those like, holy shit, you really got to get after this. And this was when I had actually started the journey, if you will, but I wasn't drinking enough water. And I used to, when I worked at the clinic, I'd crush it at least 1 Red Bull a day, if not 2. So that was very striking to me. But when you do think about the future, is it in your physical health? Is it something that you want to take the bull by the horns, or you're like, yeah, I really would like to, but I'll do it tomorrow? Like
for me, I hate going to the doctor.
Why is that, do you think?
But I was raised by my grandparents, and they were always going to the doctor. There was always,
So you didn't have Windex grandparents, like just spray some Windex on, you're going to be fine?
I mean, yeah, but also
or tea tree oil now.
Yeah. So like, their parents actually live, like in the area kind of. So if they weren't sick, their grandparents, or their parents, were going through it, or their older siblings and stuff like that. And so it was something that was always bad. It was something that was always, somebody's dying, somebody has cancer, somebody has this or that. And I mean, for me, like, I like drug that into like my adulthood. And one of my best friends, he's a doctor in Canada, and probably 13 years or so ago, like, I was playing basketball at like a gym in Portland, and like I went to grab the rebound, and I came down, and I went to turn to run down the court, and I just felt one of the worst feelings I've ever felt ever. And it felt like somebody hit me in the back of my leg with like a baseball bat.
Uh-oh.
Or like somebody
ACL?
came down like on the back of my leg, and I'm just like, fuck, like, tell me this is not happening. And like, I like turned around, and I was gonna like fight the guy, because I was pretty mad. I was like, this guy just jumped on me, what the hell, right? But then like I like went to take another step, and just my leg just kind of like gave out, and I like dropped the ball, and I hobbled out and went to my car, and I called some friends that were nurses and doctors and stuff, and they're like, well, if you tore your Achilles, you wouldn't be walking this and that. And I'm like, well, yeah, right. Yeah. So then I kept, walking on it and working on it for like a month or something like that.
No.
Gary.
Yeah. And then, and then basically like, I talked to my friend, and he did a Thompson test on me, and it's basically where you like lay on your stomach and you try to like point your feet in, and my left foot was not pointing in. So then I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, you have a partial tear in your Achilles.
Oh my goodness.
So I like went and I got a boot, and I mean, like, those types of things, like, I'm still like that now. And I mean, like, it's funny we're talking about this, because literally last week, like, I did something similar, and like I felt something like weird, like moving around,
a tingle.
Like, yeah, like weird, like moving around, like in my foot. And I didn't even want to take my sock off, because I didn't want to know. And people are like, "Oh, you should go to the doctor."
You're like, "No, it's fine."
And I'm like, "I'm good."
I'll walk it
and
off.
Like, now my foot's all purple and blue and just.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see.
Have you gone to the doctor yet?
No.
Gary, this is the point of the episode. We're getting men to go take the bull by the
your
horns.
toe. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it's better now, but I mean,
I was like, how's it feel now?
It's
that
not
looks
good.
nasty. Do you wash them feet?
Yeah, what's up with them funky toes? No, I'm joking. Gary does not have funky toes.
I've heard of hammer thumbs, but hammer toes? Come on.
So my younger brother snapped his Achilles tendon at my house while he's visiting. It was supposed to be a 2-day visit.
I
turned into a 2-month visit.
This was in a podcast.
Yeah.
One of your podcasts.
Yeah, that was an epic month, because it was May 2020. We convinced him to come down from Seattle. He lived in a 300 square foot high rise in Seattle, like by himself, and he'd been alone. I mean, alone for like 3 months. And we were like, look, okay, you're basically super quarantined. Just come down for Mother's Day. My mom would love to see you. Like, just come. And so he was like, I can come down for 2 days. Snapped his Achilles tendon, and it was his right foot, so he couldn't drive home.
Oh.
Yeah, and
sucks.
we didn't know a lot about Corona then, and I was like, I was not comfortable with my 65-year-old parents being on a hospital campus. Oh man, a lot went down that month, and so I was the one that took him to surgery, and it was out of network for him because he was Kaiser Seattle, which is different than Kaiser. I guess we call it Southwest Washington, Oregon. Anyway, it was an absolute freaking nightmare for him and for me, honestly, because he was like trying to manage his pain pills, and I'm like, bro, okay. Like, trying to like nurse my brother back to health was also a moment of realizing, like, maybe, like, why do you feel like you have to take care of yourself? Like, I mean, we had to buy a bed. My poor dad. We had to take him out of his office, and he moved into my son's bedroom because we're all working from home then. And we had to have a medical devices company deliver a bed because we couldn't find a bed. Yep. And he needed an actual bed to recover on. Anyway, it was just
I know why he wanted to take care of himself, because as guys, we don't want to ask anybody to help take care of us.
And he is absolutely like that.
Yeah.
I finally had to be in his like drug induced stage. I am taking over. Okay. Love you. Okay. Bye.
That's almost what we need though, because you know,
it's not almost. There's remove the almost.
Fine. It is what we need because we are so either proud or whatever you want to say, we can't even get out of our own way when we actually do need help. And whether it's medically or financially or mentally or physically, like we can't get out of our own way.
Yeah, and he's 100% like that. Like, just like, but he went through a really similar thing that you went through. Yeah. I remember him sitting in the chair over there. Actually, my little daughter comes running because they were skateboarding, and that's how he snapped his Achilles tendon.
Oh no!
And she comes running in. Uncle Jack is hurt, and I was like, whoa! Like fly off the couch, and I go running out there, and he's like dragging his foot. I mean, he's a weightlifter. Like he lifts heavy weights. He's a power lifter. Like But he was like, this is what I get for not being able to go to the gym for 4 months. And I was like, bro, like, this is not you didn't do this to yourself. Like, you didn't do that to yourself, Gary. Like, in your feet, it's not like it's more about the management afterwards, though, that I totally get, though. Like, there's a certain point where you're like, I don't want to deal with it. Yeah. Nobody's going to help me anyway. Like, we go from learned experiences of watching other people go through the medical system, you know, maybe our own learned experiences. I feel like there has to be a fine balance between understanding where that line is of I need intervention, I need help, and when can I take care of myself. That's a difficult line to bridge.
Most of us have not had a system in place to even remotely consider that maybe there are other people out there that do want to care for me, or maybe I do need to think about these things other than the way I do it. I know for me, that is one of my biggest faults, is that I will not ask for help when it comes, and I'm not talking about, I'm talking about physical things. I have to prove to myself that I can do it with my hand situation. After that, I've gotten to the point where if I need help to make something faster or whatever, but that's what got me through most of my youth was I'm either going to be able to play baseball or I'm going to say, no, I can't do it because of my hand. No, I just had to figure this shit out. I had to strike out a whole bunch, do all those types of things. But if you don't have that kind of set up by the people caring for you, your parents, then you don't have a frame of reference. And I think that's what a lot of us struggle with, is that we don't know what normal is, which is to have a sphere of influence that cares and loves and wants to help us. We grew up like Gary, fuck the world. I'm going to fight my way out of it, even if I'm limping. Yeah. Mike, same way. Fuck them all. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that person has no control over me. And that just, am I right, reinforced that I'm going to do this. My knee blew up. I don't care. I'll hobble. I'll handle it. You are not going to help me because of the negative circumstances and situations that were born out of these people that hurt us. Jen, you haven't really had that as much, but you were forced to deal with a major medical issue that had a tremendous impact on your life at a relatively young age. And we're not talking about cancer at 10 years old, which is a huge step, but
I'm losing half of a sense. And that was hard for me to reckon with.
It's a huge thing. And that's where, people say to me, they expect me to feel sorry for me. I'm like, I don't know what it is like to have two hands, just like you don't know what it's like to have three hands. So I don't feel sorry for you that you don't have three hands. So don't feel sorry for me. And some shit takes longer, but I figured it out. And that's what we've got to do, is through our group and our people, if you will, figure out how to overcome those. I'm sure with the Achilles, Gary, you had to have help from other people. And I'm not talking about just the doctor.
Or just put the boot on and just go, it's fine.
No, like
for me, you were calling friends, doctors, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like for me, like I definitely had help. Like I definitely had people, that were there, but I was still going to work and stuff like that. And if I tried to take a day off or take it easy or something like that, there were still people there to, call me soft or say that I'm, that I'm not,
suck it up,
toughing it out or thugging it out or whatever. But my foot was purple and blue and everything. And, people are just saying like, look, like if that was really torn, like you wouldn't be walking or doing this or doing that. And I'm like, well, they probably know more than me, you know, because, you know, the person that I'm specifically talking about was going to school to be a nurse. And this person was asking nurses and stuff like that. And I just think like, well, I'm going to listen to them, you know.
My brother was misdiagnosed in the ER by a Thompson test by the ER doctor.
Wow.
And we all went, I don't think he's right.
Yeah.
I think you need a second opinion.
Yeah.
And he had a full complete tear. He needed surgery and it had to be an emergency. It was like, well, if then you don't do this, you will not walk well the rest of your life. Like you know, won't be able to play sports. Like,
I mean, it has a huge impact, but you have the God complex of doctors that you fear questioning them.
Yeah.
I know I've dealt with that. I mean, I'm sure at some point in our lives we all have, where they have said something to us and we know ourselves better than anyone else. But the person with the big degree said, no, you are wrong, because they spent 5 to 7 minutes with us and charged us several $100s.
Oh, guys, this has been, we did several episodes on how to, on my Rebel Heart Radio, on how to advocate for yourself in the medical system, because it, like, if I'm really honest, like most of the mental health issues that I've been dealing with have been a direct result of trauma in the medical system.
And
like
that's
over
very true.
and over and over again. And it's like when you do get those people with God complexes, because I'm fine if somebody wants to come at me with something, that's fine. I don't avoid it. But when you really need help and they don't want to help you, or they think that it's not that big a deal, like, I mean, like me losing my hearing, you can't see it. I don't have bruises on my foot, but there are times when I need help. And it's difficult when you kind of get gaslit over and over and over again when it comes to your health. I think that's where I dug my heels in, is I just went, nope. Okay. You can just F off and go over there. I'm going to figure it out. I mean, I'm at that point now where I go see a new medical provider and they're like, do you have a medical background? And I'm like, no, but you'd think I did. Like at this point, like, honestly, it's like, I kind of dug my heels in and just said, fine, I'm going to strong arm this into, I'm going to control what somebody, like, I figured out how to get through the medical system in a way that I got what I wanted. Like, I'm also fighting right now for my daughter to be able to get an A1C test, because nobody wants to test her for A1C because they can't justify it to the insurance system. And I'm just like,
what is that?
An A1C test is a 3 to 4 month snapshot of your blood sugar.
Oh, okay.
It's a more accurate reading of like how you've done over a long period of time versus like you get your blood sugar taken right there. It's like, that's like a 12-hour, maybe even less, snapshot of how you've been doing recently. And of course that's life-saving and important for people with diabetes because they need to know where they are in that moment.
Okay.
But we're dealing with something more long-term, and I can't get anyone to test our A1C levels. And it's all that these doctors are holding this line that I'm struggling to hold my cool with. Because I'm like,
well, you're bound by a medical system that obviously is imperfect, but there are so many moving parts to the medical system. Having worked in the cancer world, the push-pull between insurance companies, and the medical provider, and then the clinic itself is, I mean, it's almost like there's 3 combines going towards each other, and one of them will end up coming out on top. And usually that is the insurance provider, because the one that pays the bills is the one that gets to call the shots. And that's why it's so important to have, good medical insurance as we get into these, our life. Mike works in a field that struggles with medical insurance.
Yeah, I don't have medical insurance. That's why I haven't gone to the doctor.
I get it. That's tough.
And
it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's absolutely expensive.
It's almost as expensive as Cobra, if anybody's ever had that, because, being self-employed, they don't have good plans.
No.
You have to pay $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month. And then you also have, $1,000 deductible. So it's just not financially feasible. This Obamacare is bullshit, honestly, if you ask me.
Okay.
So
because it was not targeted for people like you. It's targeted for people that are, I mean, yes, I need to restate that. It was targeted for self-employed folks, but the pricing of it is so cost prohibitive that, and then they try to threaten you with some sort of penalty.
Yeah, I haven't paid the penalty. I'm not going to pay a penalty. I think kiss my ass.
Exactly. That's the mentality that most people take. But if you look at a lot of people that have the opportunity to retire early, a lot of times they will take that and then they'll get another job at Starbucks or the county or something like that, simply for the health insurance, because it is so expensive. Not just for we're talking about premiums and deductibles. That scratches the surface, because once something does go haywire, if you got in your skateboarding and blew out your Achilles, that's a $50,000 bill like that.
Ugh.
Probably in the hundreds.
Pretty devastating, actually.
Yeah. I would imagine you could get to six figures very, very quickly. So it's a cost benefit analysis that each person has to do about the way they live and their whole life, because even just having the catastrophic insurance, which is like it doesn't cover anything below $10,000 or something.
It still completely screws up your financial life. Completely. It's like, okay, fine, I won't pass my debt on to my children. Great. But I'll be in debt till I'm 89, paying for one hospital visit. I'll give you an example. My mom had a double lung transplant in 2015. The lungs themselves cost $1 million to harvest and bring. They used a private jet, flew them here. The other $1 million was on the surgery, and I want to say the first week, because she went septic and had to go into the ICU. But all told, the whole procedure, and then she had to live at UW. Well, it was a minimum of 3 months, but she ended up staying about 4.5. But we're talking $3 or $4 million. Expensive.
Which is ridiculous.
It absolutely is. And
everybody listening should be pissed off that our medical system is that broken.
Oh, you guys.
I don't even want to get on that subject.
No, I actually do want to bring up what I did after I was done. I was tired of being angry, because I spent probably most of my 20s just being straight up pissed off about the circumstances of things. And having a baby is expensive.
Oh, incredibly expensive.
Try having a kid with special health needs in the first 3 months of their life after you've tacked on a $20,000 bill just to give birth to a baby. Where it went smoothly, I didn't need anything special. I was inducted. It was induced, but it was one of those things where we started to panic. We were young, we were broke, and we're like, I'm in the doctor every third day.
Yep.
How in the world? And honestly, I've had to learn by fire, how to figure out the medical system and how to work with it. But after I was done being angry, I had to be okay, I'm tired of being mad. I'm really tired. Honestly, it's so triggering to me. You guys, we didn't record one day because I had to go to the ER with my daughter, and you guys didn't know my background, and I wasn't about ready to dump that on you guys quite yet, but
now it's just dump city.
I was a mess. For a solid day, because I was just okay, all these memories of going into the hospital and thinking you're going to have some sort of with my son, he had an ultrasound, and we didn't think he had what he had, but he should have died. He should have died from the time he was born to he was about 3 months old. And it's a really long story, but it's so triggering to walk into a hospital, because I wasn't ready for what was going to happen the next week. We got moved into a hospital room within minutes of the ultrasound. And my husband was at work. We lived 6.5, 7 hours away from the closest family. I didn't have a hospital bag packed. Nobody prepared me. I'm sitting in the lobby, and my pediatrician's office called because they got the notification that one of their patients was being admitted. Mm-hmm. And so I get a phone call in the lobby. They're like, "Excuse me, miss, you have a phone call?" I'm like, who's calling me here?
Yeah.
I pick up the phone, and they're like, "Okay, we just want to explain what's happening." They're like, "Your son is going to be admitted to the hospital, and you will be able to stay, because you're a breastfeeding mother, you'll be cared for, and he's going to have surgery within 12 hours, and he's going to need an IV, and da-da-da." And they just went through all the things that I was going to need to do. And I was like, nobody prepared me that was even a possibility. Mm-hmm. And I was not emotionally ready. And then the next 12 hours was absolutely horrendous. Honestly, one of the worst experiences of my life. And so it turns into, I got tired of being triggered. I got tired of being mad. I got tired of being angry. And our physical health is so important. You can't ignore it. No. You can choose to, but it'll catch up to you.
It does. Right?
And so I was like, I got to stop being scared and angry and fearful over something that is kind of important.
No, not kind of.
It's essential.
Yes.
Yeah, it's essential. And that was when I really started to really leaning into like, okay, how do I feel empowered in this situation versus disempowered? Because I felt powerless, completely powerless.
And that's what the medical system is almost designed to do.
Yeah,
it gives all the power to the provider.
And I kind of had to realize what the medical system was for, what it is not for. Where do I hold responsibility? How do I hold providers responsible? And it was a long journey because I also had to kind of unwind like all of my trauma around it at the same time. And it turned into, okay, now what? And so I really started getting into, we talked a little bit about this in our group thread about like supplements and learning about what the body needs and what, and how to be at like optimal health. A lot of people call it biohacking. That's like a really big phrase. And I think
we want to get into that down the road and with a very specific type of episode. We are not medical doctors, medical providers, and this is not medical advice. But when we get into that kind of stuff, the hacking part of it truly is, because I know talking to Gary and Mike, you guys are fairly new to the supplement world and don't know a lot about it, and it can be absolutely overwhelming.
100%.
Well, if you walk into GNC and you look on each aisle, there's thousands of products, and it's like, okay, which one's a good one for me?
Thank you.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, there's a ton of people that do.
Yeah.
But the thing that you want to start with is a blood test. You need to understand your blood. You need to understand who you are as a person. And then from there, you can start to biohack or understand what your needs are, because your blood test, you're going to get full panels. And that's, the big part of why it's so important to do the physicals and things like that, because you've got to know that this is where I'm going to start, so that when we do it in the next year, when things are off, okay, well, why is that? We have a baseline set. So when's the last time you had a physical, Gary?
Last February.
Okay. Mike?
Probably 2 years ago. I had a full blood panel ran.
Okay, good. So you're not completely away from it.
No.
I have to say that your blood is like the perfect place to start.
I actually went because I was having trouble losing weight, and I'm going, is my thyroid off or what's going on? So I did find out some stuff from that blood test, which was good. I do have it's in the normal range for my thyroid, but it's a low normal.
Oh, I got so much to say about that.
My T3 serum, my reverse T3 serum, like if I take whatever it is, a fake.
Oh, the fake hormone.
The fake hormone.
The pig hormone.
Because my reverse T3 is so high, it's not going to do anything for me. So, I don't know what to do other than I went to a naturopath. I went to another nutritionist. They've looked at it all, and they're like, if you can control it with your diet, it should correct itself over time.
Yeah, like thyroid. My mom was diagnosed with Hashimoto's about 5 years ago. And I was so excited, and she was devastated. She was. Yeah,
that's what they basically said. I have the pre-Hashimoto's.
Yeah, no, I got so much to say about that, because you go to a doctor, and it massively depends on who's reading your tests.
It is.
Yeah, one that wasn't the naturopath said, "Oh, you're fine."
Yep. Yeah,
you're good. But then the naturopath no, I'm going to send you back because I want to see what your reverse T3 is. Yes. And I'm like, okay, whatever that is. And so she's like, yeah, You're on the low normal, like very low normal, but your reverse T3 is so high.
Well, see, that's where it comes down to.
I'm like, what does that mean? What
finding the right practitioner for you, because I mean, everyone in the medical system, no matter what your like dogma is around it, kind of has its purpose. Like naturopaths are going to look more deeply into the broader holistic person, but the medical system, like Western medicine, is rocking at crisis care. They're so great. If you need first aid, if you are near death, they will keep you alive.
Yes.
Yeah, they will do the most incredible, miraculous things, but that's kind of where that lies. But if you're worried about your quality of life, there's some other things you should be doing. Like other people she's talking to, like my mom's hair was falling out. And she was getting brittle. Yeah, her hair was falling out. She wasn't sleeping well.
Sorry, Gary. You have no more hair.
And it's like, but the doctors were like, but you're not dying. Like, your kidneys are fine. Your liver functions fine. You're all the major organs. And you're like, okay, yeah, but my quality of life is not awesome. She had horrible acid reflux to the point where it was waking her up in the middle of the night. Like, her quality of life was terrible. And so I was concerned it was cancer. I was looking at all these things, and when they got like,
that's
it was
because anytime you look on the internet, you're
dying.
You're cancer, you're almost dead.
Yeah, exactly. And so when she got the Hashimoto's diagnosis, I was like, oh yes, because there's so much data for Hashimoto's and for like thyroid. So if you want to talk, we can talk.
All right, so we're talking after the show.
But because I actually thought I had a thyroid dysfunction for the longest time after I had my first, like, because I was like down the list, I had to threaten camping out in my doctor's office for him to read me my test results. It took him 3 weeks of me calling every few days and being like, I know the test results are in. This was before there was like online MyChart type things. Yeah. And I finally just had to be like, great, I'm bringing my sleeping bag until he's going to read me my chart. Thank you very much. I understand that I'm not dying. I understand that you're not concerned. I want to have a conversation about what was there. And it's like, it's crazy to me that I have to hold that line with a medical practitioner. And then like 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail that he's retiring. And I'm like, okay, he didn't care.
Yeah. But, well, and you know, we talk about the insurance companies being in charge. It starts with the amount of time that you have with the doctor, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 20, depending on if it is a primary care. The shortest I ever saw is 10 minutes, and that's in pediatrics. 10 minutes is literally like IndyCar pit stop in the medical field. Most of them in a primary care setting are going to be 15 minutes. A new doc may have a 20-minute. But they are taught that if you have any more than 2 symptoms, then you get a double appointment. That's how it's scheduled at Vancouver Clinic. But they will try to talk you into limiting it to 2 symptoms. If you call in and say, my knee hurts and I'm getting massive nosebleeds, is there anything else? Well, okay, we'll get you set up for that. The point being that it's about keeping the pace going, because
packing as many appointments in the day as they can.
And they're overrun. Now, when you get into a specialty situation, you'll usually get, in talking cardiology, ENT, things like that, you'll typically get 20 minutes as your initial or your normal appointment. Sometimes 30, depending on what, like in cardiology, if you have a pacemaker or something like that, it may take a little bit more time. But it all revolves around money, and when you are not sitting in that room, they're not getting paid. So that information that you want read, the prescription that you want refilled, all of that, they're not getting paid for. It's not like they have an hourly or anything like that. They have, when you come in, they code the appointment to what you were seen for, and then the insurance company knows whether you're going to, if it's a pre-existing condition, something like that, you're setting yourself up for the future. So that's, some things to keep in mind, is that a lot of it is just what your symptoms are and what you're going there for. Mm-hmm. But it's incredibly important to take what Jen said to heart, in that you are the only one that can advocate for yourself. And if that means you have to be a raging asshole, then so be it, because that doctor will be a raging asshole to you if he feels like it. And I'm sure you have dealt with that, when you're looking at a doctor and you're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And when you talk to me like I'm an idiot. And so that leaves you with another kind of hole in your journey, your medical journey, and you don't trust them. And that's how we get to this point where now a lot of what we're seeing in with the vaccinations and all that, it's trickling from vaccinations to the medical industry in general. And we don't want people to begin being their own doctors. We want professionals to be in charge, but you also have to educate yourself, and that takes a lot of time. With you, Gary and Mike, I want you guys to answer this, because you haven't had much experience with supplements. That leads me to believe that overall kind of health type stuff, you don't have a lot of experience with. Is it something that is not, you don't want to think about it, or you don't want to or you just don't find it interesting? What is it that is the reason behind that? So the other guys out there that may be dealing with the same thing, because I know I've been there too, like I'll just not think about it. Is that something that has crossed your mind, or what's that mean to you?
Definitely. I mean, for me, like, it's just one of those things. I think, like, when you're growing up, you're kind of just thinking that you're almost invincible, and like you just think that like nothing's gonna happen to you, or you know that happened to that person, but it can't happen to me, you know, type thing. And I just think that was always my ideology and thought process. But definitely, like, the older I get, like, the more in tune I am, like, with my body, you know. Like, I'm making sure that I'm getting up in the morning and stretching and taking my vitamins and stuff. And so I've been taking glutamine and stuff like that lately. And I mean, for me, like, it's great for me. Like, it makes my joints and everything feel like a lot better, and like I feel more loose and ready to attack the day. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, even like I look at my son and like I'm talking to him and I'm like, you should be, you know, like looking to see, you know, what these NBA players are doing after the game and before the game and stuff like that. And, you know, they're icing their bodies and they're sitting in, you know, cold tubs or whatever you want to call it. Like, you should be taking, you know, like a few things after that. And, you know, his mentality was a lot like mine. I'm good. Yeah. No. And I'm just like,
but if you bring it up in the way that you can be as good as you are now, but if you're proactive, because Kobe Bryant is one of the best examples of somebody that had God-given talent and unbelievable drive. Yeah, and then he was, and LeBron James as well, incredibly adamant that his care for his body based on what he was doing was at the level it needed to be. So that, like you said, the cold bath, whatever it might be. Yeah. So try to explain to him and connect with him that way, because my kid's the same way. Yeah. I mean, he's been sore for 3 days from a lift that he did on Friday. And I'm like, son, are you stretching? Are you? No. I'm like, so you would rather be in pain than to do something proactive to help yourself? Yeah. I'm like, what the hell? But,
you know, I've spent a lot of time in this space, because try getting a toddler to do what you need them to do because they're having a medical issue is like a real mind F. Yeah. The best thing you can do when you're trying to teach kids, especially teenagers, is modeling behavior. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like,
so
if
you hop in the cold bath.
Yeah,
first.
For real.
With him?
No.
No, for real though. It's a modeling behavior is the best teacher of any kind, period. Like, my kids, I'm surprised that they allow me to I shove like 4 things in front of them if they start to show a cold symptom, and they actually do it. But it's because I do it. Yeah. Yep. Like, they see me do it, and then they view it as quote unquote normal. And I think as humans, we're wired to view what's normal. I want to be like that as a kid, right? Mm-hmm. And for most human brains, it's not necessarily what everyone else thinks normal. It's just, what do you see as common? Mm-hmm. And like, to my kids, what they see as common is I'm taking a throat spray, and I've got like a bag of supplements and a type of electrolyte drink right in front of me. And that's what I do, because that's what's helped my health, and I know it'll help them. And now it's like, of course, I'm still like following them around with the electrolyte drink and being like, you need to drink this before you go out the door. But they'll still do it. Like, the modeled behavior really matters.
They look up to you. That's the thing, is that our kids look up to us. We are their example for the world. They don't have a great picture, even though we have computers and all that kind of stuff. We're the ones that impact their lives on a daily basis. So they see how we react to things. They see whether the food choices we make, all of those things. And then when you have the opportunity to communicate with them, not talk at them, but talk with them about why we do this. Okay, why am I taking this electrolyte drink? Because there's a natural curiosity, but it also allows you to educate them so that when they're 25 years old, you're not having to do it for them.
That's my goal.
Yeah,
because it's terrifying to see your kid have this need and then be like, they're going to do something stupid and kill themselves because they just chose not to do XYZ. I mean, when you have like special needs there, it's a little more extreme, but it also forced me to reckon with that a little bit of like, how in the world is this kid? I'm not going to be with him from like age 12 on. I'm barely going to see him. You know what I mean? How am I going to get him to make those choices for himself? And it was, I mean, I'm kind of grateful that came up at such a young age, because there's a certain point where that gets difficult, where they kind of become their own person, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's what we want. Right. And that's the tough part about being a parent is setting the kids up for their future success, but alleviating the concerns we have about the immediate time. We're concerned about them right now, so sometimes we might do something for them or not explain why we're doing something, and all that does is create a dependency from them on us. And as hard as it may be, and it has nothing to do with kicking kids out at 18 or anything like that, because I'm frankly not a big fan of it, but when they're 30 years old, I want them to be able to answer these questions on their own without having to wonder, because I might not be here. That's what I look at is there's no guarantee I'm going to wake up tomorrow. So my kids had better know what they're doing right now. And they don't know everything, of course, but that modeling behavior is, it's everything. Paramount to setting that good example.
It's really hard when you have, if you're divorced, the other parent that does not do that. Yeah. And then
it's a battle.
They're modeling a bad behavior. You're trying to model a good behavior, and that clash. And it's just like, kids are almost like, I don't know. I'll go the easiest route.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and easy is the thought du jour right now. Kids are being programmed for everything. It needs to be easy, and if it's not, then it's wrong. And I just had a talk with my youngest about that the other day. He has this mentality that it just needs to be easy. I'm like, son, this is life. Life is going to start clubbing you over the head on a daily basis once you hit 18. Enjoy every moment you have right now. Yeah. Even if you're going to school and living in a fraternity somewhere or a sorority, the daily stress of life is never going to escape you, and it will never be easy because there's other people involved, and other people are not easy. So it's something that we know as parents, and that doesn't mean that our job is any easier, to use the same word, day in and day out. It's hard. Being a parent is the world's toughest job.
I guess this whole conversation comes down to really our own self-esteem too. Like, am I worth it to go through all that work? Because it's not easy. Learning about our own bodies, modeling behavior to our kids, fighting through the medical system. I haven't told you guys about this either. I wore a heart monitor for 30 days in April.
I did too.
King of Hearts?
That sucked. Did you wear it for 30 days?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
When I was working at Sierra Springs with Gary.
Oh, I hated it so much.
Because I almost passed out at work. They called the ambulance and picked me up.
Yeah.
Syncope or what?
Yeah, I had an event in the middle of the night, and I'd been having heart palpitations for a couple of years, and Corona hit. I had an appointment set with a cardiologist that got canceled because it was March 2020. And then and then I had my event later, and I finally was just like, okay, fine, I'll go to the cardiologist. Because I didn't want to deal with it. I knew that it was going to result in nothing. I knew I wasn't dying, but I was like, I probably should at least make sure my heart's okay. And
you think?
Yeah, it's kind of an important organ. And so I wore a heart monitor for 30 days in April, and I realized that I don't let myself be angry very often. Probably about early 2020, I was having this realization, and we talk about it on my podcast quite a bit because it's kind of a journey for me. My co-host did not have that problem. She is very comfortable with her anger and allowing herself to express those emotions, but I just never allowed myself to get there because, and I'm realizing this now in hindsight, I don't allow myself to be angry because it makes other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It puts other people in a place where they have to reckon with their own things. And I've had to teach my family, I'm okay. I'm allowed to be angry. It's okay. I'm not angry at you. I'm having an angry moment. I had to banish myself to my studio for most of the day because I was just angry at everything. I was angry at the way Corona was going. I was angry at my kids and their situation that they were being put in. I was angry with my health. I was just angry. And I just let myself. I was like, guys, I'm not angry at anyone, but I need to go listen to some angry music and sit in my studio by myself. And I did for 6 hours.
Wow.
And I was
That's a great outlet, though.
Yeah.
A healthy outlet.
Yeah. And it was and honestly, social media has been a little bit an outlet for me that way too, as I've allowed myself to be, it's how I've connected to people. I mean, that's why the podcast was for me, is people are reaching out to me and being like, yo, I went through that. And this is what my experience was. This is how I helped with my heart palpitations. And some of the answers were super surprising. And as scary as it was to press post on these really vulnerable posts about my health that I don't know what's going on, I've learned over time that connection point for me of realizing I'm not alone has been a huge part of my physical journey of getting to physical health, because I'm realizing I'm not alone. We're all going through shit.
Yeah.
All of us. We all got shit that we're working on.
Yeah.
And we all got mental health issues that are directly connected to our physical health. And the more we try to pretend like it's not there, the harder it is to correct, or the harder it is to like get over and get past. I allowed myself to be like super pissed off, angry. I mean, I was listening to Slipknot and like I was going to town because I had to. I needed that outlet. And it was probably the first time I think in my adult life I allowed myself to be angry for an extended period of time. Like, it felt like the whole day, but it was really only like 6 hours. And then I kind of felt like, okay, I can handle things. And honestly, I handled it way better. It was like 6 hours of just like, I am just pissed off. And this is just, I'm just angry. And I'm not angry at anyone. I'm angry at a situation that is nobody's fault. You know, it's like,
it's out of your control.
Yeah, everything was out of control. And I think for me, my physical health journey has gotten better as I've allowed myself to have those feelings that nobody wants to have. Nobody wants to be angry. Nobody wants to be sad. Nobody wants to cry. Nobody wants those things. But honestly, it's profoundly important, because if you don't, those feelings stay cooped up inside your body.
Mm-hmm.
There's actual scientific studies and data around like trapped feelings in your body and what that does to your physicality in your body. It's a real thing. Yeah. And as soon as I started to learn that, I was just like, oh, I have to face these feelings. I can't pretend like they're not there. I have to name it for what it is, and allow myself to have those feelings and deal with it, because my physical body is breaking down.
Well, and facing fear is what this entire conversation is about, because so much of that is, you know, our not going to the doctor, or just taking everything ourselves and doing it ourselves. Is we're scared of something out of our control, and if we just keep everything inside, we can handle it. And that's what we've gotten by with so far, so it's got to keep working. If it's worked for 43 years, it'll probably continue to work for 44. So.
Well, and you have to acknowledge what you're scared about.
Yes.
Well, and that's why addictions are so rampant, because you do keep it in. And the only way for a lot of people, I would say, I don't know the statistics, but I'd probably say 75% of the population, is that's their outlet. Instead of listening to music for 6 hours, it's turn to the bottle, or turn to the computer, or turn to the TV, or go, gamble your life away.
Yep. Yeah.
Because those are the socially acceptable ways to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Like, and that's the common, I mean, as I do air quotes, that's the common way, or the normal way, quote unquote. Like, the biggest phrase that I carried with me through all of this is, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it should be normal.
No.
And it's like, addiction comes about because a lot of people think, well, this is what I should be doing. This is how adults handle their shit.
This is how my parents did it.
Yeah.
Or how I was modeled. This is what behavior I was modeled. Exactly. And that was actually a huge motivation for me, being like, because my kids would come in and check on me, because we were all stuck together, right, during that time. They come in and check on me, and it was so loud in the studio that they would just kind of like poke their head in the door, and I'd just be like, I'm good, but I need more time. And they would shut the door and leave. My husband come out and checked on me. I'm like, no, for real, I need this time. I'm fine. Like, I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm fine. Just let me have this time to myself. But it took me a long time to realize that that's what allows me to work through my feelings, is like, honestly, musical vibration is like a big part of like my ability to like deal with things. And there's a whole, like, I really got into the biohacking and the data behind like what, those people that do those sound baths. Have you heard of those?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you guys, I'm so excited to do this someday. It's basically just like vibrational. It's like Tibetan bowls.
Really?
The vibration.
Yeah.
We're getting a little woo-woo here.
We are getting woo-woo, but there's a thing behind it. Because I also think that there's a way that people can get into their physical body by allowing themselves to explore things that they hadn't explored before.
The metaphysical self.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I know it's weird. I know it's uncommon. So it's not normal. But then you start looking at like things like, why do people love concerts? Mm-hmm. Why do people love live music? Why do people like music, period? It's like a certain vibrational frequency.
Endorphins.
Yeah, and it actually it affects our physical body, which can allow us to better cope with lots of things.
You ever notice if you're driving down the road and you turn your music up, and the faster the music is, or the more either angry or just upbeat or whatever, you just kind of lose your realization of how fast you're going or whatever. So it's very easy to speed.
Yeah.
You check out.
Or if it's like screaming metal, you're like driving through the cars and weaving in and out because you're just like, you're just into the music. But I mean, that's kind of.
Or you have to turn down your music to be able to see better.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I do that all the time.
Do you guys do that? I totally do that.
I'm like, shh, trying to find where I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a real thing. Anyway, just to bring it all around is like allowing ourselves to explore things that we may not have considered before has been my whole journey. Like I used to think all that stuff was weird. Essential oils are weird. Like music therapy, I don't understand it. Like there was just so many things. Like hydrotherapy is like a real thing. I absolutely love hydrotherapy.
Well, there's a lot of different ways that were being used hundreds of years ago that technology wasn't available then. So whether it was music, they had to make do with, or dancing, all of those things are a way to help heal your body and your mind that have been used for hundreds and thousands of years, that because companies make money off of engagement, they don't want you doing that. They want you with your face stuck in your phone or something like that. Well, this is a good place to stop because this conversation could go on forever and ever. As we wrap up, Jen, I think that what you said there, the bringing in the whole picture is so important for many of us, and we'll go down this path, as the show proceeds, because it's not just one show that we can do. But what do you think is the big thing that you have, or that has helped you? Hydrotherapy. What type of alternative medicine do you think has helped you the most?
Hydrotherapy was a great gateway because it's not weird. You're talking about ice baths. It's you're going from ice bath to a hot tub, and you're allowing yourself to go through both. And as you oscillate back and forth, your body's forced to like get it together, heat you up, cool you down, and you do it in short periods of time. It's like 5 minutes in the hot tub, and then you stay in the cold pool until you're.
Yep.
Yeah, or
I'm Scandinavian. That's what we do. We have saunas and we go outside.
It's a real thing. Yeah, but there's a ton of science behind like what that does for your immune system, does to your mental health. I mean, you get done with hydrotherapy and you feel like a noodle and you're just relaxed. Anytime I feel cold coming on, we go do hydrotherapy. Really? And we just do it at our gym. We oscillate between a hot tub and pool, and we do it late at night because we don't want to run into people that are like doing laps and things like that. And we come home and I sleep good when I do that. So that was a really great gateway, and it was a good beginning place for me to notice what feels good and what doesn't, because we're so bio-individual. Like what hydrotherapy might work for me and it may not work for you. So I'd say that's a really great place to start.
Mike, what about you? Do you have anything that you do that is not typical, or it could be stretching, whatever it might be, that helps you physically?
We're gonna get you something. No. Oh, Mike's gonna get something.
I don't really have anything like that.
Well, then that's a challenge for us.
I was like, would you consider doing something?
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Okay.
I'll do anything once, maybe.
Maybe twice. Gary, what about you?
So I mean, for me, it's honestly like it's just going like in like a sauna. I have a sauna like in my condo, and basically like I just go in there and just turn the lights off and just kind of like reflect on things and think about things that I want like in the future, or kind of just think about my goals and stuff like that. And and then I'll mix in some stretching, and it's just interesting just to like kind of like understand how my mind feels and how my body feels just the next day, like after I do things like this. And it's just, for me, like it works really well,
Well, and you realize the impact that has on you. Yeah. And it's an immediate impact that because it was positive, it registered in your mind. Okay, I'm going to do this again because it felt good. Yeah. And usually we try to remember things that hurt us because it's a protection. Yeah. But that is very good, and a lot of us don't take the time to do that. Yeah. As we wrap it up, guys and gals, make sure you just take the bull by the horns and get a physical. You don't have to go take the world on, but begin the journey of taking your health, mental and physical, seriously, so that you can have more Christmases and more time and things like that.
Quality life.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Quality of life is good. Very, very important. So, well, thank you, everyone. This has been another good one. We had another 1 hour and 19 minutes flash by. So, with that, we gone.